Okay, so flat earth is a cult, is what we constantly hear, okay? I'm willing to accept that. I mean, as long as they're willing to stipulate to that it's a cult that hardly believes the same things, are constantly not only questioning the mainstream narrative, but each other within the quote-unquote cult. Much like the Globe cult. There are many diverse groups within the Globe cult, but the truth of the matter is, when looked at objectively, they all just believe in the same things, all based on theories that they insist because of maths are fact, but cannot prove out with applied physical sciences. So, they're a much larger cult than the cult of flat earth. And what is the one single main distinction between the cults? Well, the flat earthers are the ones that used to belong to the Globe cult. 99.9% of us anyway. Maybe there was one that grew up with some woke parents back in my generation or before. But the majority of flat earth cult members used to belong to the Globe cult until we objectively looked at the evidence and broke through the programming, making them a cult of a belief.
The sovereign citizen movement is an anti-government ideology that started in the United States and spread to a number of other nations like Australia, Britain, Canada, and New Zealand. Sometimes sovereign citizens refer to themselves as freemen on the land. The core of their ideology is that no individual can be governed without first providing explicit consent. So essentially, they don't recognize the authority of the government to tell them what to do. They will not accept restrictions on their freedom. To them, every person is a nation unto themselves. The spread of this belief system to so many people points to the dangers of conspiratorial thinking. It's not just that one person believes something that isn't true. It's really about the ability to transmit those beliefs. With this particular movement or conspiracy theory, there is an element of danger. Often conspiracy theories are thought of as bizarre but harmless. Here we see an exception to that rule. Beliefs like these can be maintained without psychosis. They represent subclinical delusional thinking, so a level of delusional thinking that would not normally be treated by a mental health professional. This level of thinking is consistent with insufficient evidence integration, so jumping to a conclusion after seeing certain evidence without considering the rest of the evidence available. Essentially, a lack of critical thinking skills.
QAnon, an ever-shifting mega conspiracy theory that's bizarre and nonsensical. As wacky as it is, though, millions of people appear to be caught up in the internet-based cult.
Internet-based cult?
Including more and more Australians.
Karma's a bitch.
Queen of Karma.
Hello, everyone. Hello. How are you all doing tonight? I hope that you're all having a fabulous, fabulous, amazing, amazing night. Joe says, I'm going to have nightmares tonight with thanks to watching him. Sorry, Joe. I apologize for that. Greetings. I hope you're having a wonderful night. And Danny stopped by. Good to see you. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day. And Silvio says, I love watching Dr. Grande. Me too. I'm glad you like watching him because we are going to be getting into that today. Because tonight we're diving into a topic that is honestly one of the most fascinating and one of the most dangerous corners of modern social psychology. Leaderless cults. That's right. These are movements that don't have a single charismatic leader at the top. There's no Jim Jones, no Keith Raniere, no L. Ron Hubbard. Instead, they're powered by ideas, memes, belief systems, and community reinforcement. And because there's no central figure to point to, they spread faster, they adapt quicker, and they're harder for people to recognize as cultic. So I'm going to be reading an article to you tonight. And in this article that I wrote the other day and published today, I used 3 major examples. The first one is the flat earth movement, which, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, is a belief system that rejects basic science and replaces it with a self-reinforcing community where doubt is treated as betrayal. It's not about the shape of the planet, it's about identity, belonging, and the thrill of secret knowledge. The second one that I use as an example is QAnon, and I'm sure that most of you have heard about this one by now. QAnon is a sprawling, constantly mutating conspiracy ecosystem that pulls people in through fear, community bonding, and the promise of being part of a righteous mission. It's one of the clearest examples of a leaderless cult because the leader is basically a faceless message board account. And the third one is the sovereign citizen movement. And I've covered all of these on my channel before, and this one is a little more complex. And honestly, it deserves a proper breakdown. I'm not going to break down the flat earth movement for you because I have covered it extensively, and you can check out my past videos on it. We especially enjoy Cece Chris from New York, Westchester County on our flat earth here. Although we won't be seeing him tonight, unfortunately, but very, very soon. But I am wanting to break down the SovCit movement to you a little bit because it does deserve a proper breakdown, in my opinion. And I haven't dove as deeply into that one. So before we get into my article, I want to watch about 5 minutes of a video by Dr. Todd Grande, who explains the psychology behind the sovereign citizen movement better than anyone. He's a doctor, he's clinical, and he lays out the personality patterns and belief structures in a way that's incredibly helpful for understanding how these groups function. I'll link his full video in the description after the stream, and I really encourage you to watch the whole thing later because it's worth it. After we watch this clip, I'm going to read through the article I wrote on leaderless cults, and then we're going to talk about something really important, how people actually start leaving these movements. Because leaving a leaderless cult is very different from leaving a traditional one, and the exit ramps look completely different. So let's get into it. Here's Dr. Grande's breakdown of the SovCit movement, which is what a lot of people on here call it. I can tell you the earth is not flat. I have proof. Don't we all? Don't we all? Poor Jaren, that's right. Very good. I've never understood flat earth or moon landing conspiracy theorists. What is their end game exactly? Do you know what? If you're wondering that, this is the perfect stream for you to be on. Because by the end of this stream, I'm hoping I can explain like what these ideologies are all about. Like for real. You know, because like I said, it's not actually about the shape of the earth. Right? I miss Cece. I know, Joe. I know.
The sovereign citizen movement is an anti-government ideology that started in the United States and spread to a number of other nations like Australia, Britain, Canada, and New Zealand.
Yes! Daddy, it's in New Zealand! It's here in Canada! And it's kind of funny because like a lot of it seems to surround mainly U.S. law. Just saying.
Sometimes sovereign citizens refer to themselves as freemen on the land. The core of their ideology is that no individual can be governed without first providing explicit consent. So essentially, They don't recognize the authority of the government to tell them what to do. They will not accept restrictions on their freedom. To them, every person is a nation unto themselves. This leads to a number of problem behaviors. Often, they don't pay taxes, they don't get their cars registered, they don't apply for a driver's license, they don't buy automobile insurance, they will not vote, obtain a marriage license, or use zip codes. So I guess they are underrepresented among mail carriers.
But see, that's the thing, right? Like, it actually affects their life. All right? It's not just a belief system. It's not just something that they talk about on message boards. It's something that is in their real life and affects it every single day. And even the society and community around them, right? And anyone in their life.
They don't get along with the police. When the police do approach them, they won't identify themselves, and they often resist. They rarely help in criminal investigations, even if they are not the target of the investigation.
I am sure you guys have watched some soft-sit arrest videos. I'm sure you have. I'm sure you've seen at least one. And you know it always goes awful for them, right?
It is not known exactly when the sovereign citizens originated. It's believed the movement had its origin in a combination of the Christian patriot ideology and the anti-tax movement. And they like the term chargeback notice. This one is popular when they are trying to get out of paying a bill. So this allows them to use that money in the trust account to pay for, again, financial obligations. Sovereign citizens are also known to engage in what is referred to as paper terrorism, mostly through filing nuisance lawsuits and liens against public officials.
And you can see how that could then mess with the court system, which again messes with the community around them.
As far as mental health disorders, some are thought to have psychosis, including both hallucinations and delusions, although it is believed that the vast majority are not psychotic. So they probably don't have disorders like schizophrenia or a major mood disorder with psychosis. Even though their behavior often appears delusional, they may not qualify as having delusions because their beliefs are sanctioned by a large group. Interestingly, the sovereign citizens do tend to stay together. They communicate frequently about their odd beliefs. Their beliefs represent the transmission of misinformation combined with gullibility and paranoia more so than a true delusion. We also
Which is a very dangerous combination, by the way.
see that cluster A personality pathology and symptoms are overrepresented in this group. The cluster A personality disorders are paranoid, schizoid, and schizotypal. They are thought to be on a continuum with schizophrenia. It is not unusual to see grandiose and narcissistic behavior as well. We see a sense of entitlement, overconfidence, and arrogance. Interestingly, the presence of legal stressors due to their behavior seems to drastically increase their level of conviction in the sovereign citizen values, suggesting that many of them are simply trying to escape the consequences of criminal behavior. With all this in mind, it becomes clear that there is no one profile for members of this group.
That's right. There is no one profile who are members of any group, right? And that's the thing about cults too, is that I think a lot of society wants to believe that there is a certain type of person that falls for a cult. And although it's true that you have to have certain traits maybe to fall for a cult, there isn't like a type of person. And oftentimes the things that make people fall for a cult are very human. Things like wanting belonging, wanting community, you know, wanting to help other people. Believing in something is very human. And that's something that everybody wants and everybody does, right? So there is no cookie cutter bitches over here when it comes to that, basically. And I think that's a scary thing. You know, nobody wants to hear that you are just in as much danger of falling for a cult as like the hippie down the street is. You know, because I think that's how people kind of picture the type of people that fall for cults. And it's like, no, it's be surprised the cults they have everywhere.
Some of the members appear to have mental disorders, like those involving psychosis and extreme personality traits, whereas others do not appear to have any mental illness at all. Their beliefs are conspiratorial, but they also happen to have a convenient utility for committing theft and fraud. Therefore, this belief system will be attractive to a wide variety of potential motivations.
I do think that that also goes along with like kind of what the belief system is, right? It's like they don't believe in having banks, but you know, so it's like the fraud might happen, right?
It's not just members that are susceptible to bizarre thinking, but also there are con artists in the group. The spread of this belief system to so many people points to the dangers of conspiratorial thinking. It's not just that one person believes something that isn't true. It's really about the ability to transmit those beliefs. With this particular movement or conspiracy theory, there is an element of danger. Often conspiracy theories are thought of as bizarre but harmless. Here we see an exception to that rule. Beliefs like these can be maintained without psychosis. They represent subclinical delusional thinking.
Now, this is the part where a lot of people are kind of like, oh, well, if someone has a crazy belief system, doesn't that just mean that they're insane and that they can just like go check into a mental hospital and get help? And I want you to really hear this.
So a level of delusional thinking that would not normally be treated by a mental health professional.
And that's where we're going wrong here. I want to change that. I think that maybe with everything that's going on and everything we're talking about tonight, maybe we need to start looking at how we can help stop this belief system. And again, maybe we should be looking at this as leaderless cults and then handling it as we would handle getting people out of religious cults. You know, because there's a lot of people out here that are like, oh, my family member believes in this. How do I get them out? And it's like you can't really even get much help from a lot of professionals until after you leave. And you've come to the conclusion already that it's a cult, and then you can go get help for your recovery afterwards. And I think that we need to really change that.
This level of thinking is consistent with insufficient evidence integration, so jumping to a conclusion after seeing certain evidence without considering the rest of the evidence available, essentially a lack of critical thinking skills. I find this movement to be pretty interesting. Most conspiracy theories don't have an upside to the person who believes in them. For example, if someone believes in alien lizard people, they usually don't believe that the lizard humanoids are going to give them money or break them out of jail. It's like the members of this group were thinking, if we're going to make stuff up anyway, we might as well get something out of it.
I mean, yeah, I guess so, right? So I just found that a really good way to kind of explain what that group is all about. Because although I kind of explained it in my intro, I don't know if I did the greatest job, but he definitely just did. So if you've never heard of the Soft-Sit movement before, you're like, what cult is that? I don't know what that is. That is what we are talking about in my amazing article that I did here, The Cult Without a Leader, The Rise of Ideological Movements. So the first time I covered sovereign citizens on my channel, the comments section lit up like a fuse. Not because the information was wrong or because the examples were exaggerated, but because I had used one word people still don't understand. Cult. The same thing happened when I covered flat earthers and QAnon and the pseudo-legal Freeman on the land mythology that has ruined more lives than it has liberated. Every time someone would show up insisting I just cover cults, as if the term were a branding choice rather than a clinical descriptor, as if calling something a cult were a dramatic flourish instead of a scientifically grounded classification, as if the word only applied to robed followers chanting in a compound under the watchful eye of a charismatic leader. But here's the truth. The most dangerous cults today don't have leaders at all, and that's exactly why people fail to recognize them. We are living in an era where belief systems, not individuals, are the ones exerting control, where online communities enforce doctrine more aggressively than any guru ever could, where algorithms act as high priests, feeding people the next revelation, the next prophecy, the next hit of certainty. And I think another good example of when that happened on here that everyone became kind of aware with was the rapture talk. You guys remember that? I also covered it. What about the leaderless cult, though? The ideological movement that doesn't need a figurehead because the belief system itself has become the authority. These movements have quietly reshaped the psychological landscape of the digital age, and we can no longer ignore it. So let's not. From gurus to algorithms, for decades, cults were easy to identify. They had leaders, charismatic, magnetic, often narcissistic men who positioned themselves as prophets, saviors, or enlightened guides. Jim Jones, Marshall Applewhite, David Koresh are all perfect examples. Their faces were the brand. Their voices were the doctrine. Their authority was absolute. But the internet changed everything. As communication technologies evolved, influence became decentralized. Social media platforms created ecosystems where ideas spread faster than individuals and where authority could be crowdsourced. The charismatic leader became optional. The doctrine became the star. Psychologist Robert J. Lifton's work in 1961 laid the foundation for understanding how belief systems can override autonomy. Lifton studied Chinese re-education camps and identified 8 mechanisms of thought reform, including milieu control, controlling the environment and information, sacred science, treating doctrine as unquestionable truth, and loading the language, using jargon to shut down critical thinking, something I'd argue MLMs do a lot. His research showed that you don't need a leader to control people. You need a system that controls meaning. And this is what I mean when I say the problem is the system. Margaret Singer later expanded this research, documenting how coercive groups isolate members, overload them with doctrine, and punish doubt. Her interviews with former cult members revealed a pattern. The belief system becomes the authority, and the group becomes the enforcer. The internet provided the perfect delivery system. Today, the architecture of a cult can be built by a subreddit, a YouTube pipeline, a Telegram channel, a Facebook group, or an algorithm that learns what keeps you watching. The result is a new kind of cult, one where the belief system itself becomes the shepherd and the community becomes the enforcer. So when the doctrine becomes the dictator, Flat Earth is the perfect example. There is no prophet, no central figure, no official doctrine. Yet the movement behaves with the same rigidity, defensiveness, and hostility to evidence as any high-control religious group. The belief system has become the authority. The community has become the enforcement arm, and the algorithm has become the evangelist. Sovereign citizens operate the same way. There is no leader issuing commands, right? Like who would be the? I've often joked, like, who would be the flat Earth leader? Like Mark Sargent? I don't know. And he would be the Sovsit leader. Like, there's no one person, no one person. Instead, there's just a shared mythology about secret laws and magic words that promises power to the powerless. The doctrine spreads through YouTube videos, forums, and word of mouth, creating a decentralized but cohesive belief system that shapes behavior and identity. QAnon takes this to an even more extreme level. It is a decentralized prophecy machine, constantly updating itself through collective interpretation. There is no leader, only a narrative that evolves through group participation. It is a cult without a cult leader, a religion without a prophet, a conspiracy without a single author. This is the new face of coercive control, distributed, crowdsourced, and self-sustaining. Why people fall into leaderless cults. People don't join these movements because they're unintelligent. See my video about how cults don't recruit unintelligent people. They want people that are intelligent. They join because the movement meets a psychological need. And we all have psychological needs. That's not a weakness. Conspiracy psychology research shows that these belief systems offer 1. Certainty in a chaotic world. 2. Identity when someone feels unmoored. 3. Community when someone feels isolated. 4. Superiority when someone feels powerless. And 5. Meaning when life feels random. Karen Douglas and her team demonstrated that conspiracy beliefs thrive when people feel powerless, uncertain, or disconnected. Conspiracies offer simple explanations for complex realities, a sense of superiority, I know the truth, and a community of like-minded believers. If conspiracy beliefs thrive in environments of uncertainty and fear, those are the conditions the modern world provides in abundance. William Swan's identity fusion research showed that when people fuse their personal identity with a group identity, they will defend the group as if defending themselves. In experiments, fused individuals were more willing to take risks, endure pain, or sacrifice for the group. Their sense of I and we becomes indistinguishable. This explains why challenging a belief in these communities feels like a personal attack. The belief isn't just something they hold, it's who they are, right? It defines them. Cognitive dissonance theory explains why members double down when confronted with contradictory evidence. Leon Festinger infiltrated a UFO doomsday cult that believed the world would end on a specific date. When the prophecy failed, the group didn't disband. They doubled down. They claimed their faith had saved the world. Festinger documented this movement and coined cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort we feel when reality contradicts our beliefs. Instead of changing the belief, people often change the interpretation of reality. This is exactly what happens in leaderless cults. Evidence becomes the enemy, not the belief. Leaderless cults weaponize these psychological needs. They offer identity, belonging, and meaning, all wrapped in a worldview that feels empowering. And here's the twist. The absence of the leader strengthens the illusion of autonomy. People believe they are doing their own research, even as the ideology dictates their interpretations of reality. They feel empowered while being controlled, enlightened while being misled, independent while being deeply dependent on the group for validation and identity. This is not stupidity, this is psychology. How leaderless cults enforce reality. Again, leaderless cults don't need a guru to enforce doctrine. The community does it for them. And the science behind that is chillingly clear. Solomon Asch brought participants into a room with actors, pretending to be other participants. They were shown lines on a card and asked which lines matched in length. The actors intentionally gave wrong answers. Shockingly, 75% of real participants conformed at least once, denying their own senses to avoid standing out. In other words, they were given the wrong answers just because somebody else was doing it. This experiment showed that social pressure can override perception, a foundational mechanism of leaderless cults. Sergei Moscovici gathered groups of people and had them discuss topics. After discussion, the group's opinions became more extreme than the individual's original views. This is called group polarization, the tendency for groups to drift toward more radical positions over time. Online communities amplify this effect exponentially. Every comment, every meme, every video pushes the group further into extremity. Rebecca McKinnon coined the term network authoritarianism to describe systems where control is distributed across networks rather than centralized in a leader. In these systems, the ideology polices itself. The community becomes the surveillance mechanism. This is exactly how leaderless cults operate. No leader required. The belief system is the authority. The group is the enforcer. When ideas become tyrants. Philosophers like Hannah Arendt warn that ideas can become authoritarian when they claim exclusive access to truth, reject falsifiability, and frame dissent as betrayal. In The Origins of Totalitarianism, 1951, she described how ideology can become a self-contained universe, immune to evidence and hostile to doubt. Flat Earth, sovereign citizens, QAnon all exhibit these traits. They do not need a leader because the idea itself becomes the tyrant. The belief system becomes the judge, the prophet, the moral authority, the identity, the punishment, and the reward. This is the philosophical danger of ideological cults. They create a moral hierarchy where insiders are enlightened and outsiders are deceived. They create a worldview where questioning is betrayal and doubt is weakness. They create a system where the belief is more important than reality. This is not just a psychological phenomenon. It is a philosophical one. So let's get into the final experiment. The perfect example, in my opinion anyway, maybe, hey, if you have more perfect examples, leave them in the comments. That's what we can do. If you can think of any more examples of this, put them in the comments down below. But if you want to understand how leaderless cults maintain control, look at what happened when the Flat Earth community conducted its final experiment, which I also covered here on my channel. Check out that stream. It's linked right here. The one that was supposed to be the movement's triumphant gotcha moment. Instead, it became something far more revealing, far more human. The final experiment was a 2023 to 2024 independent expedition designed specifically to test Flat Earth claims using the exact evidence Flat Earthers themselves said would prove or disprove their model. It was not a debunking project created by outsiders. It was built around Flat Earthers' own criteria, their own demands, and their own definitions of what would count as proof. According to the expedition's documentation and reporting, the project traveled to locations flat earthers claimed would reveal inconsistencies in the globe model, conducted tests flat earthers said would settle it once and for all, included flat earthers in the process, live streamed key portions of the expedition, focused heavily on the 24-hour sun because flat earthers insisted that if it existed, their model was absolutely impossible. Completely, because, during the expedition, there was a live stream segment where participants, including flat earthers, observed and discussed the 24-hour sun phenomenon. In the Arctic and Antarctic circles, the sun stays above the horizon for a full 24 hours. On a flat Earth, this is physically impossible. Unlike lasers or gyroscopes or horizon measurements, the 24-hour sun is not something you can hand-wave with perspective or atmospheric lensing. It is a direct, observable, repeatable phenomenon. So when the expedition captured the 24-hour sun on camera, clearly, cleanly, undeniably, something extraordinary happened. Or extraordinary, if you ask the people of Von Passo. Several flat earthers admitted on camera that the footage disproved their world view. Some of the statements included things like, "I can't explain this on a flat Earth. This looks like the globe model. This is the one thing I always said would change my mind." It was a moment of rare intellectual honesty, the kind of moment that should have been celebrated, a moment where evidence broke through identity, a moment where truth won. These weren't outsiders mocking them. These were flat earthers themselves reacting honestly to evidence they had demanded. This moment was huge, not because it owned anyone, but because it showed something incredibly rare: real-time belief and revision in a high-control ideological environment. But the moment didn't stay pure for long. The Flat Earth community didn't celebrate their honesty. They punished it. As soon as the live stream circulated, the Flat Earth community reacted with rage, not debate, not curiosity, not "let's look at this together." Instead, they attacked the people who had changed their minds. They were called traitors, shills, government agents, controlled opposition, paid actors, and sellouts. Some of their personal information was shared publicly maliciously, what the internet refers to as doxing. Some were harassed. Some were pushed out of the community entirely and shunned. This wasn't random cruelty. It was ideological enforcement. You see that a lot in cults, right? Flat earthers didn't need to step in. The community policed itself. This is exactly what sociologists describe as group-enforced reality maintenance, a defining feature of cultic systems, even when there is no leader. And you can even argue that hustle culture is this, right? The flat earth is the final experiment is the perfect example. It is. Just remember, flurfs are experts at moving goalposts. Exactly. And they eventually did. But after they flipped out so much, right? That was part of the problem, The message in the Flat Earth cult was unmistakable. Again, not unmistakable. You are allowed to question anything except the belief that defines us. The Flat Earthers who changed their minds weren't weak. They were strong enough to face the truth. It takes a lot of courage to do that. Especially live on camera while you're watching your whole belief system blow up in flames right in front of you because the sun's still up, But the community they belonged to couldn't tolerate their strength. And that is the hallmark of a cult, leaderless or otherwise. The cults of today don't need leaders, only believers. horrifying. We are living in an era where cults no longer need gurus. They only need believers, people willing to surrender their critical thinking to a worldview that promises certainty, identity, and belonging. And that's the part people still don't understand when they tell me I just cover cults. They don't see the machinery behind these movements. They don't see the psychological hooks, the sociological enforcement, or the philosophical traps that turn ordinary people into defenders of an ideology that doesn't even have a leader. But I see it. I see it every time I leave a community and get backlash. I see it every time I publish a video or article and then backlash rolls in like a tide. The anger, the defensiveness, the accusations, the attempts to discredit me, silence me, or twist my motives. What they don't realize is that their backlash is the proof. It's the ideology defending itself. It's the group enforcing its reality. It's the belief system lashing out because it cannot tolerate scrutiny. And that is exactly why I won't stop covering this. Leaderless cults thrive in the spaces where people assume it's just a conspiracy theory, or it's just a fringe group, or it's just people asking questions. Like, what's wrong with that? But there is nothing just about systems that override autonomy, punish doubt, and fuse identity with ideology. Again, this is why I don't do identity politics. There is nothing harmless about movements that weaponize uncertainty, exploit vulnerability, and turn community into a tool of coercion. There is nothing trivial about belief systems that fracture families, destabilize communities, and erode trust in institutions. The psychology we've discussed, cognitive dissonance, identity fusion, and the emotional appeal of conspiracy thinking shows us how easily people can be pulled into these systems. Everyday people, people that you know, maybe even you. The sociology we've explored, conformity pressure, group polarization, and networked authoritarianism shows us how these systems sustain themselves. And the philosophy we've examined, the ways ideas can become tyrants, shows us why these systems are so dangerous. All this points to one truth. We need to start paying closer attention to these movements before they gather more believers. Leaderless cults are harder to spot, harder to challenge, and harder to dismantle because there is no figurehead to expose, no prophet to debunk, no leader to remove. The power is in the ideology itself and in the community that protects it and fights for it. Hard sometimes, you know? That's why education and awareness matters. That's why naming these systems matters. That's why refusing to soften the language matters. That's why I keep doing this work, even when the backlash is loud, relentless, and personal. Silence is how these systems grow. Silence is how they gather believers. Silence is how they become normalized. Silence is how they spread. And I refuse to be silent. I will keep covering ideological cults, leaderless or otherwise, no matter where they are, because the world doesn't need fewer people calling out cults. It needs more people who understand what a cult actually is. It needs more people willing to confront the systems that manipulate, isolate, and control. It needs more people who can see past the personalities and into the ideology. It needs more people who recognize that the absence of a leader doesn't make a movement less dangerous. It makes it harder to see. So yes, I will keep speaking. I will keep exposing. I will keep educating. I will keep shining a light on the systems that thrive in the dark, because the danger isn't that these movements have leaders. The danger is that they don't need one. And that's why we won't stop, and we can't stop. We'll speak out about cults all night. That's all right. Fight, 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 fight. I don't know. Good afternoon, Danny. Good to see you. So yeah, that is my article. I hope that you enjoyed it. I found this amazing amazing website here that is, I'll link it to you. And it is called Flat Earth is a Cult. So I wanted to show it to you just to prove that, like, I'm not the only one out here that's like, Flat Earth is a cult, blah, 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 blah. So as you can see, it says, escape the clutches of the cult of modern flat earth movements. For those who wish to escape from the flat earth cult on the internet. You know? I'll also link my article. It's in the description, but here it is again, just for the heck of it. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about this a little bit because it says flat earth is a cult. And I get this is old, and that's why I wanted to show it to you. This is from 2017. Okay, so it's not like this is a new concept. It just seems like people don't quite see these movements as cults today still. And maybe I'm frustrated. But it says this article and my video, by the way, is not intended to offend, deride, make fun of those who believe in the flat earth theory. Instead, it's to offer a voice for those who feel they no longer belong in the flat earth community, or those who are questioning the sincerity of the movement. Whether or not the earth is flat is not the topic of this article. It is merely meant as a warning against this new and addictive cult. Yes, modern flat earth movements are essentially cults. In fact, there are many small micro-cults operating under the wider flat earth banner. Some of these are closely related and share the same audience and general message, whilst others are, like religious denominations, spreading different interpretation and acting as rivals. However, and it's worth repeating, involvement in a flat earth community movement is involvement in a cult. First, let us examine the many reasons why the flat earth is a cult movement. For this definition, the cult can be described as an unorthodox group which has ideas devoted to a person, object, or set of ideas. So mostly all cults are concerned with a new teaching of some sort. This could be a new revelation on religious scripture or a new doctrine which leads to some grand reward for the member. In the case of flat earth, these cults are pushing the doctrine that the earth is flat, or sometimes concave, hollow, etc. And that awakening to this fact is akin to gaining a new perspective. Cults are often concerned with their teaching being the true or only way to understand a matter. Flat earth cults push this idea at the first opportunity. You have been lied to about the earth and are only now waking up to the truth. Cults operate on an isolationist basis. This is to say that they often expect a member to distance themselves from non-cult members or to give up ideas, objects, or beliefs that do not fit in with the cult ideology. This is very evident with the flat earth cults, where members are led to believe that all space imagery is falsified, and that almost everybody in the wider media is attempting to push a globe agenda of some sort. Flat earth cult members openly deride their previous interests, such as lamenting that they used to love Star Trek before they woke up to the fact that the earth is flat. Oh my God, don't give up Star Trek. Believers in a globe earth are referred to as globetards or ballers. Joe, we're spinning on a big spinning wet ball. A form of isolationist practice which creates a veil of separation between the flat earthers and their critics. Us versus them mentality, right? Cults use various indoctrination techniques, either subliminally or deliberately, to reinforce their ideology. In traditional cults, this can be misinterpreting religious scripture or forcing an extreme form of confession or guilt onto the member, like emotional manipulation. Flat earth cults are often concerned with models and maps and sometimes video evidence. Yet these are almost always based on gross misinterpretation of observable fact. Furthermore, The aforementioned globetards are instantly derided as paid shills working to rock the boat, or as trolls who are too indoctrinated to know better. This is in effect pushing a persecution complex, which is another favorite of traditional cults. That's right. Almost all cults make wild and unverifiable claims which differ greatly from established religions, philosophies, and worldviews. Popular examples could include a cult leader being personally visited by an alien prophet, or that the members are the true chosen people of God, which we've seen all of it before, right? In flat earth cults, it is claimed that an enormous conspiracy to hide the shape of the earth has been waged for hundreds of years. Every single item relating to space travel is thus a hoax. And almost everything we have ever been taught is part of instilling the globe lie. So like school is out of the question, right? So a lot of these parents also like homeschool their children. Such extreme beliefs are significantly different from, for example, believing that the moon landings were a hoax. Cults give their members a sense of identity, of belonging to something special, which is making a real difference. This is often done via flooding members with positive praise and affection, and leading them to believe that they are somehow special. Flat earthers often believe that they are working for the good of mankind, and preach to an already converted crowd who constantly praise them and share their videos and articles. In fact, this is a rather important part of the flat earth cult and is covered in more detail later on when we discuss cult recruiting techniques. A lot of people consider that to be their big grift. I'm still working on my check from NASA. Me too, Joe. Me too. You know? 2017, that's back when the flat earth was at its heyday. Exactly. We're still here, Joe. They're still doing it. It is thus evident that even without delving too far into it, flat earth movements share many of the features of traditional religious and philosophical cults. But who is likely to join a cult in the first place? After all, most people view cults as scary and dangerous, and would never willingly join such an organization. However, people who have escaped from cults sometimes only realize they were part of a cult after having left, and later woken up to what they were a part of. In this regard, a cult can creep up on a person, and they have no idea what they are entering until they are already in too deep. By studying traditional cults and their members, we can conclude that certain people are more prone to this creeping up of cult activity than others. But like I said, although we kind of say that, that's not necessarily true. There is no such thing as like a type of person to join a cult, as we now know. It's many years later. So I wouldn't necessarily say that, but it is kind of true that cults like to prey on certain human needs and psychological needs. And if you're lacking more in those needs, you might be more susceptible. I think that's a fair thing to say. One moment, I'll be right back. All right, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, I needed to go and grab a drink quickly. And I wasn't going to be gone for long enough to do a commercial break. So now that I've shown you that even back in 2017, they were talking about, how to leave cults and whatnot, I thought we would take a moment and also see what they were saying about how to leave cults, because I think it's very, very important to end this discussing how people can leave this cult. What if you're in this cult right now and you're watching this video and you're like, oh, geez, I'm in a cult. Damn, now what do I do? You know what I'm saying? Like, literally. You know, then what? So, if you have been part of a flat earth cult and wish to remove yourself from the community, you may find this is a struggle, depending on the situations which brought you into the cult to begin with. Some people lose faith that the earth is flat, but still continue to lose time, friends, and even more money to the addictive habit of flat earth movements. If you feel that this has been a problem for you, it is strongly suggested that you begin to transition away from flat earth and all other cult activities. To finish, here are some starting points to help you on your journey away from the harmful effects of the flat earth movement. Try not to get trapped. You may find that you are constantly invited to flat earth chats and that people begin to miss you when you leave for a while. And if you're in SoftSit, QAnon, these really work for all of them, you know? This is all superficial and false. Nobody misses you. As I often say about the MLMs, they don't actually care about you. It really sucks to find out. If you are serious about leaving the community, do not accept any invitations to join their discussions and do not comment on the videos and articles anymore. If you are a member of a wider religion or philosophy, spend more time in those communities instead of flat earth. Careful with cults over there, though. It is also suggested to return to old hobbies and interests that you neglected upon joining this cult. Find a genuine replacement for whatever it was that flat earth gave you. You know, and again, go seek counseling if you're having trouble figuring out what that was. This could be any number of hobbies and interests, as well as simply spending more time with your family or friends for support, instead of strangers on the internet. Study the flat earth movement from a perspective of outside looking in. Read about its history and test the hypothesis that it makes with your own outside judgment. Most of what they teach in flat earth is highly subjective and completely unimportant to leading a full and happy life. Distance yourself from those you knew in the flat earth movement. This may require removing or changing your internet alias and deleting any videos, articles, or chats you have online regarding this matter. You know, separate yourself as much as possible. On the rare possibility that you did meet a genuine friend amongst the falsehoods, send them an email after a period of time has passed and let them know that you have fallen away from flat earth, but they are still welcome to talk to you about other things. So I just thought that was a really, really good sort of place to start, you know? Scientific methods beat superstitious mythology. I agree, exactly. A sense of community, right? Like if that's why you were in it, then go and seek community in other places. But then, like I said, be careful that you don't accidentally join a cult over there, because you know you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. But I did leave the link to this, so I just wanted to show you guys that. So I'll be sure to put more links in the description at the end of this amazing, wonderful, wonderful stream. But that's pretty much where we're going to wrap things up for tonight. Thank you for hanging out with me and diving into this conversation about leaderless cults, how they form, how they spread, how people start finding their way out of them. You know, we even covered that. It is a heavy topic, but it's also an important one, and I think it paired really well with the article that I wrote and, you know, let's just say a few things happening lately. If you're new here, every Wednesday on my amazing community tab, yes, my amazing community tab here, we talk about healing after coercive control, the psychology of recovery, how to rebuild your identity, and how to take your power back after being involved in high control groups or ideologies. Today's theme fits right into that. Understanding the systems is one thing, but understanding how to heal from them is where the real work begins. You know? So if you want more information on how to recognize these patterns, how to leave them, and how to recover from them, make sure that you check out these Wednesday posts. So for example, today's was Healing After Coercive Control, Drowning Out the Noise. Welcome to Healing Wednesdays, a space where we talk honestly about what it means to heal after coercive control, cultic influence, and ideological pressure. Healing isn't just about leaving the system, it's about learning how to live again when the noise of other people's opinions, projections, and expectations tries to pull you off your path. But here's the truth. When you start healing, the noise gets louder. Not because you're wrong, but because you're finally moving. This week, we're talking about drowning out the noise. The critics, the doubters, the people who want you to stay small because your growth makes them uncomfortable. I think it's the most fitting theme. We're going to explore how to stay grounded, how to protect your energy, and how to keep walking your path, even when the world tries to shake your confidence. Healing after coercive control isn't quiet, it's not linear, and it's not always supported by the people around you. But you're here, you're trying, and that's where the real work begins. Let's get into it. Class is in session. And then, just talk about the first step, explaining what the noise is and what it means to let go of it. Then we get into actual counseling interventions. This one here is from acceptance and commitment therapy. So that's cognitive diffusion we talk about. Then we talked about staying on your path. We get into the circle of control, and I discuss how you basically get control of your life with these things. So I did this a very long time ago. You make your inside circle and your outside circle. You decide what are your choices, your boundaries, your healing pace, your values, your reactions. You write them all in the inside. In your outside circle, you put other people's opinions, other people's discomforts, other people's narratives, other people's expectations, other people's criticisms. And some of you guys know I grew up with a narc mom. It's something I talk about sometimes on here. And this was a really, really helpful thing, even for me, in terms of learning how to not, do things based on my mom's expectations. Because, most people learn how to separate from their parents when they're teenagers. But when you grow up with a narc parent, it's not that easy. Right? So it's a really good one. Really, really good one to do. We get into reclaiming your power, and I talk about meaning reframing. So it's just really good, and then we kind of sum it all up. And we do that every single Wednesday. We talk about healing. So, if you are healing after coercive control, that would be a really good thing for you to start paying attention to. And of course, hit subscribe if you want to keep deep diving into these topics with me. We've got a lot more to explore together. I write on theheck.com. I should probably leave that also in the chat for you if you want to go and check that out. If you go to the website and you click on the blogs, here, I'll show you how to do it. Get better at promoting yourself, Queen. It's important now. So if you come here to theheck.com and you go to blog, anti-MLM and cults, you will see all of my blogs where I deep dive all of these topics, especially as it pertains to MLMs. But trust me, there are lots of times where I am talking about other cults as well and other topics related to it. And oftentimes I talk about how to heal on here as well. We deep dive the psychology behind things. I do cult deep dives. I do MLM deep dives. So it's just a really good Really, really good blog. I will put a link to that in the chat for all of you. Be sure you check that out, And if you want the direct link to my area, definitely go and check out the one that I did today, and then also the dark side of boss babe culture, because I would argue that boss babe culture is an ideological cult in itself, and then MLMs are, of course, a part of that. So definitely go check out all of that fabulous stuff. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like up the stream. And I am going to see you all tomorrow evening. I am going to be doing a premiere where we are going to be talking about the Herbalife murder. That's right. It's something that happened several years ago. I don't like covering true crime stuff like right when it's going on. I like to wait a little bit till we know more of what's going on, but there's sentencing happening, and I haven't covered this one at all yet. So I thought that we would do that tomorrow. Didn't seem right to do it today on our Healing Wednesday. So I hope you were fine with this. I thought it went a little bit better. But yeah, that's going up tomorrow. And then Friday is going to be, of course, on Friday. Every Friday we get together and we hang out to talk about the Unpassive cult, which is an MLM cult that turned into a cult of personality surrounding a man, a con artist named Ash Mufara that I've been covering for many years on my channel. And we do that in a fun, comedic kind of way. So, if these topics are hard for you, because I understand that a lot of times they are heavy, I do try to provide fun ways because I myself have PTSD and, I need trigger warnings sometimes. And so I try to keep that in mind and make it so that there's ways we can talk about these things and have a laugh and have some fun and, not make it all so serious all the time. But thanks again, everyone. Have a fabulous night. And I will see you all tomorrow evening where I will be hanging out with you all for the premiere about the Herbalife murder. Make sure you're there. Okay, I love all of your faces. Okay, bye. Like and join the